Hello friends, welcome to yet another session on essay perspectives. The topic for today is all ideas having large consequences are always simple. Without wasting much time, let's start. Friends, as always, I have a personal request. Third edition of my book Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude has unfortunately been pirated. Pirated copies are of very low paper and print quality. I urge all the aspirants to buy original. Original copies can be bought by scanning this QR code or by clicking this link here. Thank you. Friends, every essay has to be first conceptualized as being made of components and subcomponents. So this essay we would first introduce the topic, and then we would develop upon the essence of the topic. Then we would talk about the power of being simple. What are the merits associated with being simple? Then we also ponder upon the various strategies involved in developing simple ideas. Okay. Then what are the strategies? How can you communicate these simple ideas effectively? And then we would pause a bit and in order to introduce an element of criticality into the essay, we would we would question the very own essay statement, and we would argue that simple is not enough. Then we would finally conclude. Friends, as soon as I saw this topic, I was reminded of the one powerful, simple idea that revolutionized, that changed the course of governance of the world, if I may call so. That is Satyagraha. So, as all of us are aware, before Satyagraha was propagated or propounded by none other than Mahatma Gandhi ji, all the movements in the world, all the revolts in the world were mostly underpinned on violence. Correct? So in order to overthrow, in order to uproot an existing government, the people had to take up revolutionary means which used to inflict a lot of casualties to public. Correct? And mostly the capturing of power through this violent methods was very transient, temporary, and it was not very successful. See, that's how the world governance was being shaped. Correct? But the Gandhiji came up with this idea of Satyagraha. Satyagraha was a very simple idea. What is Satyagraha? Basically, Satyagraha is active resistance. In Gandhiji's own terms, active resistance. So we would, a Satyagrahi would continue to love the opponent, would not submit to the unjust or injustice being inflicted upon Satyagrahi or the community that Satyagrahi represents, but he would resist such unjust practices with a smile, without harboring any rage or anger or hatred towards the opponent. Okay, or to put it even simply, it is basically smilingly resisting the injustice without allowing the opponent to inflict upon injustice. It's a very small, simple concept actually. You would smile and you would not let him do. So this was a very very simple idea basically actually. So you love the opponent, but you don't submit to his demands, or you don't submit to his courses of action. You would still resist. But how would you resist? You would resist non-violently. You don't mind being hurt, but you would not hurt the opponent. So this was a very simple idea, very simple idea. But see what happened. So this simple idea led to India achieving independence. Perhaps the only country in the world that achieved independence at that point of time through this simple method, non-violent method. Correct? And finally, it inspired civil rights movement in US, spearheaded by Martin Luther King Jr. Similarly, it inspired freedom struggle in South Africa, spearheaded by Nelson Mandela. Correct? Then you may think it's a very simple, and also the beauty is that 75 years down the line, the country has continued to enjoy that independence. Most of the countries which captured independence fell back to the same anarchy after a few years. The same is the case with French. which used to French revolutions. We read 3 French revolutions. Why? Because every French revolution overthrew a government only to install another government that would again continue the same unjust practices of the previous government. Correct? So that's how the other world has been. But see India. So India has been very stable. That is one reason for India being stable, is it hard-earned independence through this powerful yet simple technique called satyagraha. Then you may, so thus the ideas that have large consequences are mostly simple. Satyagraha is an idea which everybody could understand. Satyagraha is an idea which anybody could practice. Satyagraha is an idea which anybody could implement. Correct? So thus it was a simple idea and it was the most effective and it had the largest possible consequence in the world history. Correct? So that's the introduction, friends. After introducing the topic, it is time for us to understand the essence of the topic, friends. Okay, so this essay statement, if you observe, has a few key terms or phrases. The first term is ideas, the second or the first phrase is ideas having large consequences, then the third term is simple. Okay, so let us start one by one. So what is basically an idea? Idea is a thought, idea is an inkling, idea is basically a vague conception of what to do, how to do. This is idea. This is the simplest way in which you can explain idea. It's a vague conception as to the possible course of action. It is a vague conception as to the possible action or possible behavior, possible decision, whatever actually. So it's a vague conception. It is abstract. It is in the mind. So rather than doing this way, let us do that way. Correct? So friends, actually one example could be, say if you are aware, this Cycle Pure Agarbatti founder Mr. Narayan Rangarao, actually when he came up with this product called Cycle Pure Agarbatti way back in Mysore, so initially he wanted to market his product, he wanted to sell his product at a premium rate, at almost 3 times the price his competitor products were being sold. Then how he started, what he did, rather than going and introducing his product to every storekeeper or shopkeeper in Mysore, he used to go to every shop. Before that shop, he used to light one incense stick of Cycle Pure Agarbatti, and then he used to come back. So then the fragrance of that Cycle Pure Agarbatti used to be enjoyed by the customers there, and they started demanding for that product, and that's how that product became popular. Correct? So this is an idea. So it's an idea. It's a vague conception. It's an abstract conception that, okay, rather than going to the customer, let me go and just light this one match, light one agarbatti at every shop. So this is a conception of how to market the product. So that's basically idea. Correct? Ideas having large consequences. So when you implement something, okay, so whatever conception of a possible course of action or decision, if implemented, if it changes the course of the existing way of doing things altogether, then that is said to have large consequences. See, I am doing a particular thing in a particular way. Okay, with an idea, I would change the way I do the same thing. With this shifting of the course of action, would it lead to more profits? Would it lead to reduction of cost? Would it lead to more sales, or would it lead to overthrowing of government, or would it lead to accepting a desirable social practice in the people, or would it lead to people shunning an undesirable social custom? So that's how, if this new course of action would lead to the acceptance of most people, if it would create a huge impact, then it is called the idea having large consequences. Correct? Simple. So let us take the cue out of the same example of cycle pure agarbatti. So in that cycle pure agarbatti, see, all of us are aware this was an idea. Correct? You know what was the consequence of it? So every day the Mr. Narayan Rangarao used to go light this agarbatti before every shop. The customers who at that shop used to feel that in the smell, fragrance, and used to demand that. So rather than Mr. Narayan Rangarao going and asking the product, next day storekeepers themselves were waiting for him to come and light an agarbatti. Correct? So later they placed orders. You know, when at that point of time, when so the agarbattis, about 100 sticks used to be sold for 30 paisa, I guess, I'm not sure. Then it was way back in 1920s. But he offered the incense stick at 1 rupee. Everybody accepted. So there was no bargaining. He made a sales pitch. People blindly accepted because they were convinced of the potential and convinced of the sales potential of his product. Now what was the future, friends? Today Cycle Pure Agarbatti is almost 1500 crore company. Is it really, sometimes many people wonder, is it really possible to build a business empire of 1500 crores by merely selling agarbattis? Yes, it can be done. Then what is the reason? What is this idea? Don't you think this idea had a large consequence? Yes, correct. Then simple. What is simple? Simple is to define simple, rather than defining simple, it is easy to define what is not simple. Correct? So that means simple is something which is not complex. Simple is something which is not compound. The simple is something which is easily understandable. Simple is something which is easily comprehensible. Any common man, any layman without any specialized knowledge, if he is able to see it, understand it, or if it is explained, if somebody is able to understand it, that is what we call simple ideas. Also, another dimension to being simple is that simple ideas are something which can be implemented easily. Simple ideas are something which do not need specialized knowledge, which do not need specialized machinery, which do not need specialized expertise to understand. So that is what we call simple. Correct? So now let us try to bring together all the phrases. Okay? So that means essentially what the statement is trying to connote is only those conceptions which are easily comprehensible, which are easily understandable, have the potential to create far-reaching results. If an idea is not easily comprehensible, if a conception is not easily understandable, then its potential to create far-reaching consequences gets minimized. So that is the whole idea. Don't you think Mr. Narayan Rangarao's idea of lighting incense stick before every shop is simple? If I tell this, anybody would understand. I can go tell to the most illiterate person in the remotest part of the world, even that person also would be able to understand. It's a simple idea, but it became successful. It had the larger consequence. See, instead, he could have called he could have visited every storekeeper. He could have offered discounts. He could have offered some special incentives to the customers, etc. He could have done a lot of things, but they were all complex. So for which he had to do some analysis as to, if I offer this at this discount, what is the loss I would have, what is the return on investment I would end up getting, how much for how many days should I have to sustain loss before my company breaks even. All these complexities he had to work out, but he didn't do anything. So it would have been like he had to go run behind storekeepers to agree to his product, and it would have had slow assimilation. But what he did was amazing. It was a simple idea. Correct? Now, after understanding the essence of the statement, we are all convinced that from the Mr. Narayan Rangarao's example itself, we are all convinced that the simple ideas are powerful. But why? Why would simple work so effectively, so efficiently? Why? So the reason is because when I say simple, it is easy to understand. See friends, most of the ideas, if they have to give desired results, they have to be implemented by many people, because hardly any idea gets implemented by a single person or by the person who thought of it. Correct? So the success of any business concern, the success of any social movement gets determined by the way the business concern is managed, or the way the followers of the social movement adhered to the instructions given by the leaders of that movement. Correct? So here, for us to do that, first it has to be easily understood. If the idea is simple, it suddenly gets assimilated by everybody. Correct? So instead, let us say Gandhiji, for that matter, instead of Satyagraha, had Gandhiji said that all of you should create some ammunition, and then you should start attacking some British symbols like government offices or whatever through firearms, fire bombs, etc., etc. Would it have happened? No, because it's very complex. You cannot understand. So, but Satyagraha, it was simple. You go, you sit there. Whatever they do, you don't shout at them. You don't give back. You just simply sit and don't allow them to do. What an amazing thing. So, because the first thing is, an idea has to be freely understood. So, if it's easy to understand, then more people will understand it and more people will embrace it. Correct? Another example is, for this, is our Indian innovation of UPI payments. Correct? See, before UPI payments, there were a lot of things. Cards were there, RTGS was there, NEFT was there, etc., etc. But until then, the digital transactions were very much limited in India. Correct? But this simple idea of UPI, that sending for money from mobile to mobile, suddenly led to spurt in the digital transactions. Why? Because it was easily understood. It could be understood by everyone. Earlier, for you to do transfer, you had to go to a system, and then first you have to log in using password, sometimes double authentication. Then again you had to select a particular tile on that screen. Then you had to go, you had to first add a beneficiary. Then once that beneficiary gets confirmed, then you had to effect payment, for which you had to wait for a few hours, and then again you had to go log in. All these things was very complex for many people. But let us know what has happened. See the simplicity, and that has led to, even today, many people, even uneducated people who are not tech savvy also, they just take the mobile phone, scan QR code and make payment, and they would send money on Google Pay or Phone Pay. It because it's so simple, because people understood. Since they understood, that idea had the largest possible consequence in terms of increasing the digital payments or transactions. Then the simple ideas are easy to communicate. See, you can easy to understand. Once you have understood, you have to communicate. No, because the idea should get assimilated eventually. So every time an expert would not be available to communicate that idea. An idea should spread on its own. Idea should be powered by itself. So that means if one person understands that idea, he should be able to communicate to others. Then only that idea will have larger consequence. This is possible only with simple ideas actually. Thus, simple ideas are easy to understand, at the same time they are easy to communicate. So thus, geometric progression starts giving dividends here. So that means, one person would understand and tell to another person. So he would again tell to two more persons. So that's how it becomes. One person becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight becomes, it just goes on. So thus, it is important for the simple ideas become, they work because it is easy to communicate. Friends, for example, take IKEA. IKEA is known for furnitures which can be, which can be assembled by the individuals themselves, correct? Customers themselves. So you would get all spare parts, you would get a handbook, and you would have to assemble yourself. See, since their ideas are very simple, they can easily communicate that to the customer. So customers, though they are not though they are not trained carpenters, still they would be able to see, and the tools are simple tools. It is very easy to assemble the furniture at home itself. So if it were to be complex things, then customers would not have been able to understand and assemble themselves, and IKEA would have faltered. So now IKEA is such a big company. So by conceptualizing and communicating simple ideas in an effective way, it has now emerged as one of the leading furniture seller in the world. Correct? Next, it is easy to convince. See, there is a difference between communicate and convince, friends. See, I am able to communicate that to you. It is simple idea, it is easy to communicate. But though I am communicating, the other side should be able to get convinced that it would work, right? So if they don't understand, they would not get convinced. So thus, if it is a simple idea, they would be able to understand your communication and they would get convinced. Same is the case with Satyagraha, friends. So Satyagraha, Gandhiji's communication, Gandhiji's propagation of the idea of Satyagraha was accepted by people. So people were convinced that it would work because it was a simple idea. It was not something complex. Correct? So it is simple ideas are easily, it is easy to convince people with simple ideas. The next logical step after getting convinced is to adopt that idea. So friends, so sometimes it may so happen that the idea is understandable, or the idea is understood, or the idea is communicated. Then the idea, you are convinced of this idea. But if you cannot adopt that idea for whatever reason, maybe because to adapt that idea you need more money, to adapt that idea you need some specialized skill, etc., etc. Then though you are convinced of that idea, then you would not adopt that idea, then it would again falter. But simple ideas are not like that actually. So that's why simple ideas, people adapt simple ideas very, very easily. For example, take the example of UPI only. Correct? So UPI is this is payment system called UPI. So let us say it were to be deployed on a separate device, okay, other than mobile phone, that you needed to carry another device to transact on UPI. Then even if you are sure, even if the people get convinced that it is very easy to transfer money by using that device, then people would not buy that. The idea may be simple. You can just have a device and you can, whatever is the nearby device, you can, through click of a button, you can transfer. Everybody is convinced it's a good idea. But for which they have to pay more. They have to buy one more device. They have to pay for that device. All these issues would come up. But the master stroke is that simple idea of UPI has been integrated into cell phones, which is being used by everybody today. So because of that, it is easy to adapt. So thus simple ideas work because it is easy to they adapt by, it can be adapted very easily by the individuals. Correct? Then upscale. See, any business for that matter, friends, wants to upscale itself, or any social movement for that matter wants to become a mass movement. So it has to be accepted by many people, adapted by many people, so that it gathers the required mass to influence the people in power to come down and give a favorable policy decision. Correct? So thus this upscaling is important. So as I already told you, if the idea is complex, the idea gets restricted to minuscule minority of the population. When the idea gets restricted to minuscule minority of the population, then it doesn't gather the requisite mass or it doesn't gather the requisite weight to shake the people in power, to nudge or budge the people in power to relent. Correct? So for us to do that, it has to acquire, it has to be upscaled, it has to be made a mass movement. Correct? So thus, if it has to be made a mass movement, then it has to be simple. That's the whole reason why these strikes, lockouts are conducted in various fashions. See, let us say, friends, if everybody has to do fasting, everybody has to do fast unto death, then it's not simple. Many people may not agree to it. Correct? So then there are many other ways of doing it. So let us say signature campaign. It is very easy to upscale. Whoever is there, people can go sign and send petitions. Correct? So that is an easy way to do, because that's easy to upscale. It's a very small, simple idea, but it's very effective because it shows to the authority that these many people are in favor of change in the policy decision. Correct? So thus, this cannot happen in a complex thing. If everybody has to go physically do dharna in headquarters, then it's practically not possible. It is complex. People have to give up their vocation, they have to put for travel, they have to go there and do it. No, it's not possible. But a mere simple signature campaign works. Another easy thing is also like motivating people to contribute 1 day's salary. Correct? So it is very easy. Another best example is this insurance companies. So whenever they sell you the product, if you have to go and pay premium every month across the counter, then it's not simple. But that's understanding between insurance companies and the banks, finally leading to auto deduction of the money from your bank account every month is a revolutionary thing. It's very easy to upscale. So you can just give a form and every month it gets deducted. So that is the power of simplicity. If it's a complex thing, it cannot be done. Next, I told you, simple ideas are easy to implement. See, what is the fun in having an idea if it cannot be, or if it cannot be implemented? So that's why simple ideas have this potential to be implemented. So why? What is the reason? The first thing is, fewer resources are required to implement a simple idea. That means you don't need more money, you don't need more material, you don't need more men. With the available meager resources, you can do that. The best example is again UPI only. Correct? So for onboarding yourself onto a UPI platform, do you need to buy new mobile phone or any new device? No. Do you need to learn anything new? No. So finally you already have a bank account, you have a mobile phone. So your only idea is just integrate it. So, and the usage of that UPI is as simple as using any other feature in the cell phone. So it is fewer resources would make the simple ideas easily implementable. Second is, no specialized manpower is required. That's what I am saying. So to implement a simple idea, a common man can do himself. He doesn't need any specialist or an expert to come and help him. Just as in the case of IKEA IKEA furniture, where a common man can assemble those furniture, the furniture of IKEA. So that's simple. So you need not have to go to a carpenter to do that. Fine. And another thing is, the advantage of simple ideas is it is easy to roll back. If it doesn't work, you can easily roll back and go back to the old system. Why? Because for implementing this simple idea, you would not have invested much resources. You would not have hired people. Finally, you are testing. It is easy for experimentation. And if that experiment fails, nothing wrong. It's okay. Let me go back to my old system. So that's how things. That's how simple things work. So it's easy to roll back. So this makes people venture into simple ideas with more confidence. And finally, less risky. So simple ideas are less risky. You are not losing anything. You are just trying something new without committing more resources. So even if you falter, if you fail, you always have the option to coming back to the old system. Correct? So these are all the reasons why the simple ideas lead to larger consequences. Then once we are convinced that simple ideas are effective and lead to larger consequences, how do you develop simple ideas? This is important. So for developing this simple idea, there is a prescription to develop simple ideas, simple strategies. So first is you have to understand the central theme, understand the desired outcome, understand the factors influencing course and consequence. That means while you are contemplating on something, you have to first understand what do you really want to achieve. What is your final outcome after implementation of this idea? If you understand that desired outcome, then you would have to understand the factors influencing those course and consequence. That means for me to achieve this desired outcome, what are the factors that would influence the process of achieving the desired outcome and also the consequence of that. Correct? So then if you have this clarity, then it becomes easy to, for first this understanding is important. I am sorry, I am going back to the same old example of Cycle Pure Agarbatti. So his founder had clarity, had understood the central theme. What was the central theme? Central theme was to convince public to buy his agarbatti instead of the existing brands. This was the central theme. Then what was the desired outcome he was expecting? Desired outcome that he was expecting was people coming to him rather than he going to people. People coming to him and buying agarbatti for a premium price. You get my point. So this is the desired outcome, specific outcome that was running in his mind. Then what are the factors that would influence? The first factor is for people to come to him, they should first get convinced of the product. Correct? So he was sure that people would voluntarily come to him to buy his product if and only if his product is liked and endeared by the prospective customers. Correct? For which he did lot of research and finally his product had the best fragrance amongst all the agarbattis that were available in back then. Correct? So the first factor was to convince, he understood that. Okay. The second factor is where would public buy and go demand? Where would I be able to reach public? Though this product may be good, but I need a platform to market my product. Right? Then he realized that people would go and buy these agarbattis at various provision stores, various stores. So he understood that also very well. Correct? So this is how he understood the business of agarbatti or marketing of agarbattis. Okay. Then what is the next step? So the next step is replace, combine or split those factors. Once you have understood the factors, then your idea should be to replace one of the factors or combine two factors or split those two factors as the case may be, so that it leads to an altogether different result, an altogether better result. Okay. In this case again, see, he understood that fragrance is important. Once he understood his fragrance is important, he first replaced the chemical composition of his agarbattis so that it gives a very convincing fragrance. That is the first thing he did. Then he understood that people congregate at stores. So in order to use it as a platform, see, earlier, of course, other agarbatti manufacturers also were going to the stores only. This fellow also wanted to market his product at store, but how he changed, replaced. Earlier people used to go and offer the agarbattis, say orally giving sample, etc., etc. But he, without talking to anybody, he started lighting it. See, his other counterparts or his competitors, whoever may be, without lighting the agarbatti, they would be giving samples to the storekeepers, which they would have kept it on the counters or shelf, and somebody would first buy it. They go home, they have to light it. which may be observed by only a few people, the people who would appreciate that fragrance also would not immediately go by. But if it is lit at the store itself, many people who would have come to buy the agarbattis would get excited and they would buy agarbattis. There and there itself. They would have come to buy agarbatti A, they would buy agarbatti B. And by doing so, many people would buy, and that's how his product would click. Correct? So thus, simple ideas, we have to understand the factors and try to replace those factors to make it more effective. So that is how one should develop simple ideas. Then how should one communicate simple ideas? Best way to communicate simple ideas is to break down. Breaking down is important. So the idea has to be first properly broken down into various concepts. Once it is broken down, it has to be, if the target audience are not able to understand it, you should try to give a pictorial representation of the same. See the marketing campaign of all these detergent powders. So these detergent powders actually, see, they wanted to communicate to the public that by using their particular detergent brand, their clothes would be free of stains and they would glow. How would you do that? The best way to do that is, so you put three pictures. In first picture you show a dirty cloth, second picture washing the dirty cloth using the particular specific detergent brand, and the third one is a very new cloth that looks very fresh and glowing. Correct? We can take the example of election commission also. Why on ballot paper do you see symbols? They can very well use names and close the issue, right? Why serial number? Why name? And upon these two things, symbols, because they want to communicate that a particular candidate is contesting very effectively. Even if you see the symbols of many political parties also, every symbol stands for something, or they want to convey something through a particular symbol. Some political parties choose a symbol that represents farming community. Some political parties choose a symbol that represents labor class. Some political parties choose a particular symbol that represents a particular religious community. Some political parties choose a symbol that represents a particular regional community. So like that, so simple ideas are very easy to communicate. So that's how you should communicate. Then on the job training. See, once this idea is broken down, then communicated, then on the job training has to be imparted. Once that on the job training is imparted, then people would that idea, they would accept and embrace the idea. So the best example is computerization of banks. Initially when banks were computerized, though it was a simple idea, because it used to reduce lot of manual hard labor. Correct? So earlier days when the bank operations were to be carried out on ledgers, on physical papers, the bankers had to do lot of reconciliation, lot of totals. They had to manually generate lot of statements. It was very, very difficult. Very difficult, time consuming, and there was a lot of scope for error, and that error would lead to a lot of improper data leading to improper decisions. But then computerization came. So computerization was reducing their job in a very big time, because most of the repetitive work, like you see in computerization, what would happen? You have to feed only basic data. As and when you feed basic data, then final output you can take as you wish. If you want a particular statement in a particular format, you can take. If you suddenly think this format is obsolete and you want it in a new format, again you can run a query, run an algorithm and take a statement in another form. So this basic data you can juggle with the way you want, and you can retrieve the data where you want, and finally you can make decisions. It was so easy. It's so easy. But again, people would not accept. They were not accepting it initially. But since it was a simple thing, later it was communicated. Once it was communicated, then on the job training was imparted. Once that on the job training was imparted, slowly bankers started accepting it, and today there is no issue. Correct? So thus on the job training is important. Then next thing is, let the new idea be made to be accepted as philosophy. See, there is a difference. If the simple ideas are communicated as a process, then their acceptance level is lower compared to a scenario where these are communicated as philosophies. There is a difference. Communicating idea as philosophy is meant that they should not just accept the idea, they should make it part of their life. They should breathe that idea. Satyagraha is the best example again. I'm sorry, I'm going back to same repetitive examples, but in order to have the continuity and make you understand, and somehow in this case I am forced to refer to the same examples again and again, because these examples I personally have believed in. That's the reason. That's it. Okay. So here Satyagraha also. Why Satyagraha became so powerful? Because everybody accepted that. They thought it was not a technique. Everybody thought it was a philosophy. Since it was a simple technique, people could communicate it as if it is a philosophy, and everybody accepted it, and that became a movement leading to clinching of freedom by India. Then friends, once we have done enough batting for simple ideas, now it is time for us to introduce an element of criticality into the essay. Here we are trying to pause for a moment and trying to argue against or counter argue the merits of simplicity. Correct? Is simple enough? The answer is definitely no, friends. Definitely no. Why? Because, friends, the entire purpose of human endeavor is to develop. Correct? So what is development? Development essentially means going ahead. Correct? One idea is developed. You should not stop at that idea. You should add another layer to that idea. You should improve upon that idea. And finally, you should go deeper and deeper. So in this process of making a better version of an idea, it is quite natural that an idea transforms from being simple to being complex. Correct? I remember once Einstein. I remember reading once reading about Einstein's statement that though he discovered theory of relativity, after some more research on theory of relativity, some other attributions to theory of relativity, it has become so complex that he was not able to understand that theory. So though it was on a very light note, but still it's a very profound and powerful statement. You should not stop at that scenario. Correct? See, Newton came up with Newton's third law of motion. Correct? So somebody could have just kept at it, right? But somebody implemented it, adapted it into rocket sciences and came up with rocket. Correct? So thus no idea should remain simple, or the theory of or the nature of evolution is such that the nature would not allow any idea to remain simple. You have to extract as much as possible from each idea. So in this process of extracting more and more, the idea, more and more research has to be carried out on each idea, and it becomes more and more complex. So if you take the example of space research, nuclear research, though the bedrock for space research and nuclear research are simple scientific principles or simple physical principles or chemistry principles, whatever, but now the way space research has developed, the way nuclear research has developed is very complex. That's why you can read and study about Newton at school itself. You can understand his theories. simple. But how it is being implemented in space research, it's very difficult to understand. Same is the case with nuclear research. So thus it is quite natural that simple principles would not remain simple, but they become more and more complex as time passes by. And also, simple is thus not suitable for specialized domains. See friends, you cannot expect everything to be understood by everybody. Fine, there are some specialized works. Let us take medicine for that matter. Correct? You cannot expect everybody to act as doctor. It's a specialized domain. So you cannot expect everybody to do complex surgeries. It's a specialized work. So in such scenarios, the idea may be simple, but if the idea remains to be simple, then many benefits you have to forego. Let us take the example of heart transplantation, lung transplantation. They are so complex procedures. Can you be happy with some other simple ideas? Let me rephrase. See, let us take keeping up of cardiac health. Okay, health of heart is very important. What is the simplest way in which you can keep your heart health, cardiac health well? So all of us are aware. You should reduce carbohydrates. You should eat more of vegetables. You should drink lot of water. Every day you should do exercise. You should not take stress. You should have proper sleep. All these are simple principles, right? These simple principles keep up one's health, heart health, cardiac health. So this is a simple idea which can be practiced by everybody. Brilliant. It has larger consequences, I don't deny. But can you just stop at that? There may be scenarios where despite these things, because of some genetic things, the heart issues, cardiac issues may crop up, leading to necessity for a bypass surgery, necessity for an angiogram, necessity for a heart transplantation. In such scenario, just you want to have simple things, then can, if mankind had stopped at that point of time without doing any further research, perhaps we would not have had heart transplantations today. We would not have had bypass surgeries today. So thus, these simple techniques are acceptable only to general domains, but definitely not to specialized domains, for which you definitely need complex ideas. They are essential. Then simple stops development at the point where layman ceases to comprehend it. That's what I was about to tell you. I was telling you. So even for the cardiac health example also, if the for the sake of simplicity, for the sake of not over complicating it, if research had stopped there, then nothing would have moved. Correct? So simple is important. Simplicity is extremely potential. It has high potential, but it has its own limitations. Okay friends, from above discussion, after this elaborate discussion, it is time for conclusion. From the above discussion, we can safely conclude that there is no doubt that simple ideas have far-reaching consequences. But simple ideas cannot remain simple. If simple ideas remain simple, we would not be able to extract benefits out of more research on those simple ideas. So thus, it is desirable that more and more research is undertaken on simple ideas, and more layers get added with more and more spin-off benefits to the community. With each addition of each layer, these simple ideas slowly turn complex. But once they turn complex, the ideas have to be, the benefits, spin-off benefits have to be effectively passed on to the community. So if it has to be effectively passed on to the community, it has to be definitely made simple again. Though complex surgeries are invented today by medical scientists, yet there is always an attempt to make that simple only. That's how instead of regular surgeries, now laparoscopic surgeries have come, laser treatments have come. So that means the process is always, from simple it goes to complex, and again finally it ends up as simple only. Then lastly, we can, from the above discussion, we can very well conclude that simple is important, it has far-reaching consequences. Simple would become complex, but the success depends upon breaking down that complex into simple so that the benefits are passed on to the community. And we can also confidently say that simple is more suitable for incremental development but not for breakthrough invention. Correct? So friends, hope I have made sense. Let's meet next week with another topic. Thank you. All the best.